Thank you. So, just a quick context and introduction from my side as well. So Celtra is a creative technology company, and we've been working with Unilever since 2015. So it's been about 10 years. So we've been, helping them launch better creative across the globe, markets and different channels. And Unilever has been always at the forefront of innovation. So I must say that they've been pushing us to just try harder. And I've always admired a fearless approach to marketing and all the ideas. And so today I'm talking to Ryu, who's like the new generation of leaders at Unilever. Just writing a new chapter. Marketing obviously is moving very fast, so I'm very excited to be with you here on this stage, and I have many questions. Yeah, so
have them.
So with that, I just want to get going. So, okay, you're leading transformation inside one of the largest advertisers in the world. But let's rewind for a second.
Okay.
Was there a moment in your earlier career, perhaps even something small, that taught you a lesson that is really crucial for the work you are doing today?
Yeah. So I would go all the way back to my first job I ever got out of college. My final interview was with the president of this company. And I walk in and I'm doing the interview. And this guy knew I had gone to a liberal arts school for college. I went to Williams. And so he says, you know what? I'm so excited. You have a liberal arts guy. And I ask everybody this question, and nobody has ever answered it correctly. And he walks up to his bookshelf, and he pulls up this leather-bound book. He's like, do you know what this is? And he hands it to me. And it was Descartes' Meditations. This is really like the most random, obscure thing that could ever happen to you during a job interview. He's like, did you study Descartes at Williams? And I was like, yeah, no, I did, but as a freshman, like 4 years ago. And he's like, this book contains the single most important lesson that any marketer should know. What is it? And I'm like, what is this guy talking about? I had no idea. And I remember I had just seen The Matrix recently. And I'll come back to it. And I said, oh, it's Cartesian doubt. You should question absolutely anything that gets put in front of you because you could actually be in a simulation and not realize it. And you need to question the conditions of any decision you make. It's like, that's right. It's like, you're the first one to answer it. So I've always taken from, and if you've watched the Matrix movies, it's loosely based on Descartes' Meditations. But that was my cheat, was I had recently watched Keanu Reeves and helped me get my first job. But I always think of that president. We have to be interrogating all the conditions on every decision that we make.
Wow, that's impressive. Did the interview finish right there and he just said you're hired?
Something like that. It went good. It went good.
Okay, excellent. All right, so look, the marketing is moving very fast. Just evolving in real time. And, today we're talking about like social commerce. We're talking about like culture moving basically in real time. So how do you see the role of marketing today in creating relevance, desire, outcomes at scale?
Yeah, so AC was here just a little while ago, and I think she was, as I was listening to her, I was like, wow, how am I going to say that any better than you just, delivered it? But I would say, we're really focused on building out and delivering desire at scale and building that through what we consider commerce forward and social first marketing, right? So for us, it's very important to be thinking end to end. And so we always start now with what is the sort of the commerce forward, what is the proposition, the element of our proposition that's really going to drive desire, whether that's in the digital or the physical shelf. And then who are the communities wherein that would be relevant and or who will drive people that we're trying to move to be convinced on this? How can we actually become part of that discourse in a way that's relevant, really frame the benefits in a way that will lead those folks to be our advocates and speak that on our behalf? We think about what the occasions are where we can most land that. And only then, once we've thought about that, we're really then keying in on how we design each of the touch points and working with stuff like your kit so that we can deliver that excellently in the market. What that's allowed us to do is really bring a true end-to-end solution as we're talking about with our customers, with our retailers. And we think deliver marketing to the shopper that's both more useful and is more efficient for us as well.
Great. So then let's talk about outcomes. Because I've heard you talk about Unilever's ambitions to become like the most outcome-driven advertiser in the world. But how does that look actually in practice? So how do you build a culture that's outcome-driven in such a large organization?
It's interesting to have that conversation here in the context of like an awards festival, right? But it's true, is my mantra is always, and I deliver this in every, whether it's within my team and the way we set our goals, whether that's with our agency partners and the way we challenge them, whether that's with our media partners, always the conversation is the same, as Unilever wants to be the most outcome-oriented of any of these. And the fundamentals of that is really building on it. We're very proud of the performance management approach that we've taken in, having solid measurement that allows us to evaluate and really make decisions and treat decisions in such a way that we can be always making the progressive choice and always sort of living with agility so that we can be dynamically making our mix work, harder for us is really the theme for us.
Okay. And, for you, sitting between the media and also capabilities, so how did you actually recreate or rebuild the capabilities of Unilever to actually, execute on that vision and ambition?
A lot of this has been very new to us. So I think we traditionally had measurement, for example, which is a real underpinning of the work that we do, sitting as part of the consumer market insights function. That's now become truly its own discipline that's just focusing on understanding what are the right signals we should be tracking. How do we measure that? How do we have attribution correctly? How do we drive signals so that we have that consistently and deliver that back in the business in a way that has the cadence that's going to allow us to perform the right way? Setting audience expertise within sort of our marketing organization, setting true performance management. It's very unusual, has been traditionally for us, to have people in a performance from a media standpoint making sort of the decisions on the investment, not the brands. And having that sort of shift happen is a real point of difference, that we take a lot of pride in. And I'll come back to the question that you asked earlier. Ultimately, the culture comes from the mantra, and what's allowed us to both get the right resource within our organization and also to drive the right kind of credibility so we can make those decisions is that we firmly believe that media is no longer a support function for marketing, but that media is a growth function that creates sales and drives sales for the business. That's what allowed us to really shift as we've been moving from a world where we're thinking of marketing to demand generation and how we then convert that. And so, all of this has been of a piece of setting up our org differently. And so even the way that we're set up now, in the States where I have those functions, I look after our media and our marketing capabilities. That implies having together with sort of a data interconnected universe, right? Whether that's measurement, shopper marketing, the audience work, our digital capabilities work, performance marketing, all of our partnerships work with IP and such.
Good. So there's a lot of talk about trust, how to actually build trust in the new social and social commerce environment. What's your thinking about that? So how are you going about doing that?
So, I think there's a couple of things here that are of relevance. So I have this fantastic colleague at WPP, Janet Levine. I don't know if she's here today, but she's here in Cannes. If you see her, she's great. But, Janet wrote this article like 2 years ago, and it's still like, triggers in my head. And she always says it to me too. We want to be building worlds, not chasing moments. And so that pivot in the mindset, I think, is really important. It's something that I'm trying to embrace, in the work that we do. And so around this idea that if we're focused proactively on the spaces where we want to be building our brands, what are the communities that we want to not only penetrate or engage with, but really build lasting identity with, play a role in that community and service that community, then we're going to be more equipped so that when a moment comes that you want to strike, you're ready. You have the content ready. You already anticipated that moment was going to happen, and so you're ready to go. And I think when you're operating in that way and you're operating consistently, then you can build trust, because I think it's earned. And I think, there's so much today where, as a matter of fact, and our CEO talks about this quite a bit, today, part of what's made social first so important is the advent of giving all of these creators, who are people like us, a microphone and a voice. And their advocacy has massive power because of the relevance of their experiences, because of the way that they communicate with an authenticity, and of course, the fact that they're delivering it instead of the brand. And I understand, as Marcus was saying earlier, someone who is like me expressing to me that something is great is going to be highly convincing. But there's still this aside, that's all true. Yeah. And along with that, it's important that the brand build those relationships and build that trust over time. And I'm blessed, I get to work and represent, Unilever. We have Dove here. We just celebrated last year 20 years of support against the Real Beauty, project and our work against self-esteem. And it's that kind of a thing where you have lasting credibility to be able to speak to people on issues that are both very personal and very sensitive. And then also to have the flexibility to do things with the brand, which we often do, which are more lighthearted. And we're able to have that flex because people know the brand as if they knew them as a person.
So agility seems to be a big deal for you. I mean, you're like super large, obviously investing massively across social and other traditional channels. Yeah. So how important for you is the agility in that process?
It's everything. You know, we focus on the agility, but the preparation is even more important. You know, it's like you're preparing for a sporting event. You got to practice and map out all the scenarios, right? You know, I think it's been vital. Our pivot into, on top of being prepared, our pivot into more modular design has given us flexibility wherein when we want to be able to articulate a message differently, tie in and take advantage of a retailer promotion or activity, something happens in culture that we want to be able to re-engage, a creator says something, we want to remix that and turn that into another piece of, having all of this templatized, understanding how we would go about to execute allows us to have a speed that's different as well.
So with 50% of investment going in social channels, how did you evolve your creative strategy?
Oh man, so I didn't say that.
Okay.
and I would not make reference to such things. You know, we are making a heavy lean into social.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the reality as we've moved there is, you know, between the amount of audiences that we wish to reach, the desire to be able to reach them with really compelling, diverse content that really addresses each of them, and to understand the diversity of the channels, that each of these social channels is their own ecosystem, that their algorithms respond differently to different types of creative. And then, of course, that we want to be a full funnel marketer, that we have different stages of the relationship, different parts of the journey that we were trying to track a shopper through. We quickly realized you had a real exponential need for a different type of content ecosystem or supply chain versus what we had before. And so that's involved us ramping up both massive in-house as well as sort of network of freelance agency partnering work that we do with influencers and creators so that we're able to bank that at scale. And then building up, which I know you want me to talk about, you know, really leveraging modular design consistently. And we went from having a need before our big pivot into social about 2 years ago. You know, we were delivering a couple hundred assets a year for a given brand for the different social platforms. And, you know, last year, you know, we've multiplied that more than 10x. You know, we're delivering tens of thousands of assets now. And that requires an entirely different scale and the ability to, again, remix, recreate, reinvent our content, and be able to build out, you know, all the different permutations that we might want to be able to get to. And so, you know, I would say, you know, the work that we've done with Celtra has been, you know, really important for us in that regard. We went from, and we were one of the big holdouts within Unilever, my market specifically. I think we went from like 0% modular to 100% of our digital programs being run modular in about 8 months in 2024. And so it's been a huge transformation for us.
Yeah, this is great. You know, we are excited for that. So I wanted to ask you about creative supply as a, you know, just from a high level, how you're thinking about, you know, even from, you know, starting with the narrative or whatever, like the brand story is, and then, you know, all the way through your markets and basically channels. Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about how the creative supply is set up today in your organization? Like who is actually, is it more being done in-house? Do we have more partners that are basically building content for social? Are you relying on automating a bigger part of that? So we just
I would say all three in practice. So I think we have been building up, as I said, in-house we have now creator, community management, internal sort of brand say, organic, you know, content that's coming out. You marry that with work that's coming down from briefs where, you know, at this point we're demanding, you know, if it's a creative agency is working with us, it's our expectation that our digital work is coming landed in modular templates that we're going to be able to leverage more efficiently. That also allows us to scale for control of the quality. It also makes it easier for us to move creative across markets so that we're able to scale it faster. So there's manifold sort of benefits, you know, for us operating that way. And then we have folks that are both engaging with hands-on keyboard, playing within Celtra, and agencies that are then scaling that up on our behalf. So it's, I would say, across the whole gamut.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the future. So where do we go from here? especially in terms of connecting creative also to your basically media supply chain, and then the role that AI will play in the future. How do you see basically AI impacting that creative to media?
Oh, so I think AI is going to impact absolutely everything. We see it today already. I think the most scaled application that we see is the plethora of the pluses. All of the media platforms at this point have their AI module, but we genuinely see it having a benefit in terms of the targeting capability that we're seeing, delivering the right impression at a better CPM. And so the adoption of that has scaled very fast. I think the next wave within that is what I would consider sort of the, maybe the baby stuff. So stuff that you could probably do as a 1.0 already in your platform with extensions, with backgrounds, things of that sort of a nature, that we see that across a lot of the platforms as well already, being adopted in terms of driving. But it allows you to extend, scale up. I can take the same asset and then flight it and extend it against broader potential canvas than we could in the past. But I think, some of the more interesting stuff is when we think further up the chain, right? So one of the things that we've been doing is developing, we call brand DNA internally, is this idea of really setting up so that we are training and we're ready to be able to plug into any tool, because the reality is these things are changing constantly. And today you might have the best kit, and tomorrow, one of your competitors might have the better kit. We want to be able to flex and be able to operate across any of them and be agile in that way as well. And so that's been a big focus of ours. But the belief is that way we can actually leverage the AI to help us to become more disciplined and both faster, as well as staying on brand more as well in terms of understanding our best practices. So it's a huge benefit. I mean, when you think about that from the creation down into the testing even, the advent of AI testing and simulating how different audiences might react to a piece of creative, all that stuff is real, and it's stuff that is very impressively to me, maybe within 18 months already, I think very well scaled out within our industry, which is impressive. And then I think, obviously the one that doesn't scare me, but is the most provocative, is the advent that, AI will change who we're selling to. This idea, we're all obviously fascinated. I know it's one of the big themes of this week here at Cannes, is this idea of agentic and how it'll impact. I think it'll impact our business systems, ideally to make us more efficient and, to simplify work for people. But where it's going with the advent that, as AC was saying, so much of the rote shopping that's happening will pivot towards bots, and being prepared to sell and to pivot your ecosystem so that it's driving that kind of purchase, so that we're winning. I think AC said it beautifully, or hearts and bots, which I loved, I think is a real challenge and really thought-provoking for everybody.
That's great. Yeah, obviously a big team, so we could talk about, for a long time. But, one thing I also wanted to touch on is recent campaigns. So is there anything that you would highlight that you've done recently that leveraged, the capabilities we talked about, whether it's like modular and just basically the ability to respond faster, or basically using, more assets to be more relevant, just any of the campaigns that you'd say like that's something we're really, proud about?
Yeah, so I would say we've recently had this great expansion in the deodorants category here in the States. Some of you guys, I don't know if anybody here uses whole body deodorant. There you go. Yeah. So the idea there, which, for the longest, I used to work in the deodorants category, and always people lamented, people would say to me, like, people aren't going to grow a third armpit. So there's only so much that we're going to be able to. But now we finally realized you don't have to grow a third armpit. We could just use the deodorant everywhere. And so, but the way that it has taken off has been really shocking. And so what we saw as we went into the 24 innovation cycle, we went into the market with several different sort of innovation propositions. And quickly we saw the winning proposition, the market clearing proposition, not just for us, but across the category, was going to be whole body. And we needed to scale up our content immediately, because we were seeing back feedback and looking at fast signals that our content was fatigued because we didn't have enough scale, and we needed to refresh with rotation. So this is a category with Dove especially, where, or was a campaign with Dove against whole body, where we decided we were really going to key in on here. And this is right as we were making the conversion onto the modular. And we were able to scale up dramatically, so thousands of assets, bring down the fatigue rate, and you immediately saw improvement to effectiveness and purchase interest triggering off of all of the indicators that we were following. And so That was one that made me really proud because we were able to show the responsiveness, the agility that we were able to get out of it, and also the benefit that it gave was giving us in terms of scale.
So basically, agility, speed, and efficiency impacting the outcomes, the metric.
I think that's exactly right. And I think what it comes down to today is, especially as we're talking more and more with AI-driven algorithms, that the algorithm rewards the piece of content that speaks the most clearly to a specific audience. So the opportunity to really tease apart and pull apart our creative in a way that's going to make it more differentiated, so it speaks more, that's going to lead to everybody having a better CPMs and higher effectiveness against them, and your wear out rate is going to be lower instead of showing people sort of repeated things that they can't tell apart. So, for me, those are the three big things. So agility, scale, diversity.
Is there any of the metrics that you look at that is becoming more important to you today than it was in the past, and especially related to creative? Is there anything that you look, or you just basically at the end you want to see, the big picture, like whatever, like purchase intent, or if it's commerce, you just want to see conversions. But is there a leading indicator that could tell you, okay, if we push the metric up, we're going to ultimately see a better outcome and what you want to do for Unilever?
Well, I reference fatigue, and that's one that we've started to play more and more sort of close and keep track of in terms of freshness, because I think it actually signals multiple different things in terms of whether or not the content is right. Diagnosing why you would be fatiguing faster, and or the rate of the scale that you need for your rotation to be sort of driving with sufficiency. I think that's a metric that's been really important to us recently.
That's great. Okay, a closing question here from my side. Maybe someone in the audience will want to ask you something as well. But so in the last 2 days here at Cannes, so what is something that take away from this event, whether it was a conversation or anything that surprised you in a positive way, or like a trend that you are seeing emerging, and you want to kind of take it back to your work and maybe put more thinking into it?
I'd probably agentic. I mean, that's what's been on the mind, and so that's what I've been seeking out as I've been here. But probably that.
Agentic in a way, connecting more systems together, or just like giving you as a marketer and also your colleagues, just kind of an easier, faster, better way to operate what you're doing today? Or connect?
No, so I've been thinking that way. I think, honestly, the hearts and bots thing, I think, is maybe the thing I've been thinking about more over the past day since I've been here.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Look, thank you very much. Again, thank you for being a great partner, but also, for sharing all these insights with us and with everyone else. So I don't know if the stage has any questions, because that was...
I think we're down to 20 seconds.
No way? Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.